boys and girls, when we find the evidence in the text that provides examples of tone, what are you going to do?
Underline it.
You're going to underline the words. Lightly underline them? Just kind of like, so we can go back and talk about them at the end. Which chapter are we reading?
26.
Which book? Okay, we'll get you at lunch, Chalkers, Robbie whispered as Bradley returned to class. You're late, said Mrs. Ebel. He sat at his desk, last seat, last row, and looked at the chart on the wall next to him. Of course there was no gold star next to his name. He had already done 3 things wrong. First, he had knocked over a girl, and he made her cry. Second, he was late getting back to class. And third, and worst of all, his name was
Bradley Chalkers.
As long as his name was Bradley Chalkers, he'd never get a gold star. They don't give gold stars to monsters. They beat up monsters. He looked around at Jeff, Robbie, Russell, and Brian. He had to concentrate very hard to keep from crying. The worst part wasn't getting beaten up. The worst part was that he knew everyone would love it so much. He imagined the whole school, the boys, the girls, and even the teachers standing by and cheering as Jeff's gang took turns hitting and kicking him. I love how Isabella's following along. I'm waiting for one more to join me. Your glasses okay? Okay, so we're at the bottom of page 99. So does he think the teachers are going to even enjoy it?
Yeah.
That's got to be a horribly sad feeling, depressing, sinking feeling in your gut. When the bell rang for lunch, he slowly took his paper sack out of his desk. We'll be waiting for you outside, Jeff said to him. Bradley watched him walk out the door. He walked slowly toward the front of the room and then suddenly dashed out the other door and into the hall. Bradley, come back here, Mrs. Ebel yelled. He kept running. So what if he got in trouble? What difference did it make? He pulled the door to the library. It wouldn't budge. The library was closed during lunch. He tried to think of somewhere else he'd be safe. There he is, said Doug, stepping out of the auditorium. Bradley turned and ran back the way he had come. He rounded a corner and then he stopped and he made a quick and desperate decision. He opened the door to the girls' bathroom, closed his eyes, and stepped inside. He opened his eyes. Luckily, the room was empty. He held his breath and listened. Nothing could be worse than being beaten up inside the girls' bathroom. They'd probably stick my head in the girls' toilet, he thought. He waited. He didn't hear anything. He looked around. The floor on the bottom half of the walls were covered with green tile. There were 2 white sinks and a paper towel dispenser. There were 3 toilets and 3 separate stalls. Each stall had a door. It looked very much like the boys' bathroom. Girls' toilets appeared to be the very same as boy toilets. He was disappointed. He couldn't risk going back out into the hall. So he leaned against one of the stalls, reached into his brown paper sack, and took out a roast beef sandwich. Someone was opening the door. He quickly put the sandwich back in his bag and he hopped into a stall, closing the door behind him. He stood on the toilet so that his feet could not be seen. Sit on your chair like that. Thank you, Kale. Exactly. Sit on your chair. Now stay on your chair. He listened. He heard a person. They can stay like that. You're Bradley. He heard a person walk across the tiled floor and then enter the stall next to him. Have you been underlining any words, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. He covered his mouth with his hand as he heard some familiar and very private sounds. At last the toilet flushed and he heard the person zip her pants and walk across to the sink. He heard the sound of running water and then a paper towel pulled down from the dispenser, and finally the bathroom door opened and shut. So what does that mean? She just did what? She just left. She took care of business and she walked out, right? He exhaled, hopped off the toilet. He hopped off the toilet. Some people are still on the toilet. Ian, you're still on the toilet. That's okay. I'm used to stuff like that too. Okay, he hopped off the toilet, stepped out of the stall, and froze. Two girls were staring at him. One was the girl who had used the toilet next to him, and the other had just entered. He wondered which was which. And then he heard the loudest scream he had ever heard in his whole life. And that pretty much answered the question. He darted past them, opened the door, and flew into the hall. He rounded the corner, came to a door, pounded wildly on it, and it opened. "Bradley," said Carla. "Hello, Carla." He held out his hand. "It's a pleasure to see you today." All right, so let's talk about some